Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a trip back to the mid-90s. We're really honing in on one of the most important guitar sounds in modern rock, I think. That raw, but still super clear tone from Green Day's Dookie. So our mission today, we're going to take a really close look at the pedal built to nail that sound, the MXR DD25 Dookie Drive. We've got the specs, the background, user feedback, all that stuff. We'll unpack its core idea, this kind of unique dual amp thing it does. We'll analyze the controls, the blend, the scoop switch, which are surprisingly flexible, and maybe most importantly, if you're thinking of buying one. We're going to clear up the confusion about those 4 different versions, V1, V2, V3, V4. What's the deal there?
Yeah, context is key here. This wasn't just like another signature pedal churned out. MXR, well, Jim Dunlop put it out specifically for the 25th anniversary of Dookie, and the goal was super specific. Get that dirty yet articulate overdrive, perfect for those fast melodic punk riffs. That clarity, that's the whole point.
Right. That phrase, dirty yet articulate, heavy, but not just mush, right? That's the trick. When you listen to those tracks, the power chord slam, but you can still hear the notes inside them. And the secret, the thing built into this pedal, is how it mimics 2 really different modified amps Billy Joe used back then. And then it lets you blend them together. It's pretty clever. Okay, so let's unpack that. This dual amp model, how does it work?
Well, to really get the pedal, you got to understand the gear it's based on. We're talking about some seriously modded British-style amps. Think high-gain Marshall Plexi clones, pushed hard, it's sometimes called Pete, that kind of thing. The original sound wasn't just one amp. It came from running 2 of these modded amps at the same time. So the DD25 pedal, it captures the essence of both of those signal paths. The first amp, okay, picture this. Mids totally scooped out, just carved away. And insane amounts of gain. That gives you the raw power, the sizzle, the low-end thump. The pedal calls this the high-gain section. It's meant to sound huge.
Okay, but hold on. If you just use that sound, that super scooped high gain thing on its own, wouldn't you just vanish in a live mix?
Yeah.
That's the classic problem with scoop tones, right?
Yeah.
It sounds great alone, it disappears with the band.
Exactly. Precisely. That's why the second amp was so vital, and it was totally different. This one had a really strong mid-range focus, punchy mids, and actually slightly less crazy gain. That's what the pedal calls the crunch mid section. Without it, you'd just be sonic mud. The mid-focus path gives you the cut, the actual voice of the guitar, so it slices through. And the genius part is how the pedal blends these before they even hit your main amplifier.
Ah, okay. So they didn't just copy one amp circuit. They modeled 2 different amp personalities, basically, and fused them together in one box. And that blend knob is the key.
That's it.
It decides how much scooped power versus how much mid-focus clarity you get.
Yep. And that's what makes the Dookie Drive more than just a one-trick pony signature pedal. It's way more flexible. It lets you mix the best parts of both circuits. You get the high gain, and you keep that essential clarity. It tackles that classic problem. How do you get aggressive sounds without turning into mush?
Okay, let's get into the controls themselves. You've got your standard output, gain, tone. Pretty straightforward. But like you said, that blend knob and also the scoop switch, that's where the magic really happens. Let's dive deeper into the blend control first.
Yeah, the blend knob is absolutely the heart of this thing. Think of it like a mixer, a crossfader. On one side, you've got that mid-focus crunch sound. On the other, the super scoop high gain sound. And the gain levels are pretty different, remember. The high gain path goes from plus 9 dB up to like plus 70 dB. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's mimicking those modded Marshall gain stages. The crunch path is tamer. Plus 2 dBV up to plus 45 dB. Still plenty of gain, but less extreme.
So the blend lets you navigate between those 2 gain structures and EQ curves.
Exactly. So say you want a lead tone that really sings, sustains, but doesn't get thin and fizzy. You might lean the blend more towards the crunch side, maybe dial it to, 70% crunch. Then you just use that last 30% of the high gain path to add a bit of extra sizzle, maybe some compression feel.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you're blending 2 circuits with such different EQs, one V-shaped, one mid-heavy, doesn't that cause issues sometimes, like phase problems? Especially maybe into a clean amp.
That's a really good question. If you just took 2 separate pedals and ran them in parallel, you could definitely run into phase weirdness. But MXR clearly thought about that. They built in a clean internal summing stage. It means the outputs of those 2 distinct circuits are properly phase aligned and sort of EQ matched so they play nice together. They're not just crudely mixing audio, they're summing the character of the 2 amp models into one coherent sound. Pretty smart engineering.
Okay, what of the other knobs? Output is just volume, right? But the tone knob, how does that work with the 2 blended circuits?
Right. Output is your master volume. Pretty simple. The tone control here is basically shaping the top end, your overall brightness. Now, because you're potentially blending a really bright saturated sound, the high gain side, with a warmer midier one, the crunch side, that tone control becomes your final polish. Let's say you've blended heavily towards the high gain side, lots of sizzle. The tone knob is crucial then for maybe rolling off any harshness, any excess fizz, taming it a bit.
Okay.
Conversely, if you favor the crunch side, the tone knob can add back some presence, help you cut through without needing that aggressive scoop. It's always the last thing in the pedal signal chain, so it's the final voicing tool.
Gotcha. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for versatility, I think. The scoop switch. This isn't just a simple EQ tweak, right? It's described as more of a character change. What's it actually do?
Yeah, it's more than just a tone knob tweak. When you flick that scoop switch on, it basically slams the mids down even further. It takes that already scooped high gain character and just exaggerates it, doubles down on the V-shaped EQ curve. That's why people say it sounds thrashy or metal adjacent. You're pushing energy away from the core mid-range and concentrating it in the low end for that thump and the high end for the bite and attack.
Whoa. Okay. So that really does shift the context. You go from that melodic punk thing to something much heavier, more rhythmic. But does hitting the skimp switch completely wipe out the crunch channel if you've blended some of that in?
It definitely dominates the overall EQ shape, that's fair to say. Even if you have a decent amount of the crunch path blended in, flicking that scoop switch means the final sound is going to have that really aggressive V-curve feel. It shows how it's wired up. The scoop seems like this big global EQ shift applied after the blend. It's a powerful way to instantly jump genres, almost.
Can we talk specific settings? Like, how would you dial it in for that classic sound?
Sure. For that core Green Day rhythm sound, think moderate gain, maybe around 1 o'clock on the dial, and lean the blend pretty heavily towards the crunch side. Maybe, say, 75% crunch, just 25% high gain. Gives you that tight palm mute sound without getting too fizzy, and definitely scoop switch off.
Okay, makes sense. What about for leads?
For lid cut through, you need more sustain, more push. So crank the gain up higher, maybe 2 o'clock, even 3, and bring the blend closer to a 50-50 split. The higher gain gives you sustain. And the 50-50 blend keeps definition from the crunch side, but you get the saturation and feel from the high gain side too. Still scoop off, usually.
Right. And then for that really heavy, almost metal rhythm.
That aggressive rhythm sound. Okay, you might actually dial the gain back just a touch from the lead setting, maybe noon or 1 o'clock, just to keep the low end tight. Then you lean the blend more towards the high gain side. And then, yeah, flick the scoop switch on. That's how you get those huge, powerful rhythm chords. Really chunky.
Good examples.
And one last tip on placement. This pedal really shines when it's doing the main heavy lifting for your distortion. Put it in front of a clean amp or maybe an amp that's just starting to break up a little. Let the DD25 be your primary gain stage. Don't just slam it into an already super distorted amp channel, generally.
Okay, let's tackle the big question for anyone looking to buy one of these now. The versions. You search online, you see DD25, then V2, V3, V4. It gets confusing fast. What does all this mean for the actual sound? Is a V1 different from a V4 tonally?
Right. This is super common confusion, but we can actually clear this up pretty definitively. Looking at the manuals, the official specs, discussions around the circuit, the key finding is this. There is no solid evidence that the core overdrive circuit, the part that actually makes the sound, has changed in any meaningful way between V1, V2, V3, and V4.
Really? So they sound the same?
The specs are identical across the board. Same gain range is listed, same input-output impedance. The way the blend and scoop controls work is described identically. So if you're a player just wanting that Dookie tone or the flexibility we've been talking about, any version, V1 through V4, should give you that same fundamental sound engine.
Okay, wow. So if the circuit's the same,
Yeah.
the differences must be purely cosmetic. Collector stuff.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Pretty much, yeah. It boils down to aesthetics and limited runs. Let's break them down quickly.
Okay, V1 is the original, right?
Okay.
DD25, no extra label. Came out around 2019. Standard green box, classic Dookie album cover art. That's the first one.
Yep. And you got V2, sometimes marked D1825 V2. That was often a special edition finish, like brushed aluminum. Different artwork, too. Looked different, same guts inside.
Right.
Then V3 caused a bit of a stir. That came out early 2020, February, I think. Limited edition. Known for that unique unicorn graphic, it tied into the father of all album artwork. That one definitely got a price bump on the used market pretty quick, purely because it was limited and looked cool.
The unicorn pedal, yeah. I remember that one. And V4. That's the latest.
V4 is the most recent special edition wave. You see them in different colors, red sometimes, other graphic finishes, again, often marked limited edition. But internally, all signs point to the same core circuit as the others. Stable platform, just different clothes.
Okay, so this is really useful practical advice for anyone listening who might be shopping for one. Basically, if you just care about the sound, grab whichever version you can find at a decent price. V1, V2, V3, V4, they should all deliver that core dual amp tone.
Exactly. The decision to pay more comes down entirely to collectability. If you really want a V1 because it's the original, or you love that V3 unicorn art, okay, that's a collector's choice. And it might hold resale value differently, but just for making music, for plugging in and playing, you're getting the same high-quality overdrive circuit regardless of the paint job. Hashtag tag out to your still. So to kind of wrap up this deep dive, the Dookie Drive pedal, it's valuable not just because it nails an iconic sound, though it does that well. Its real strength, I think, is in that dual voicing design. Blending the scooped gain with the punchy mids, that gives you serious tonal flexibility. It actually works well beyond just chasing that 94 Green Day sound. It's just a really well-designed overdrive pedal. Delivers punch, clarity, good stuff.
Totally agree. Yeah, the key takeaway. Remember that blend, the scooped amp character mixed with the mid-focused amp character? That's the secret sauce. And the blend and tone controls are really interactive. The scoop switch, genuinely useful for heavier stuff, adds real versatility. And maybe the biggest practical point, V1 through V4, fundamentally the same sound engine inside different boxes. Which brings us nicely to our final provocative thought for you to chew on. Given that the sound is basically consistent across all these versions, does the collector appeal of, say, an original V1 or that limited V3 unicorn pedal, does that really justify paying a big premium if you're just a practical musician looking for the tone? Or is that extra value purely about the finish, the rarity, the bragging rights?
Something to think about next time you're scrolling through used pedal listings, looking for that perfect shade of green. Or maybe brushed aluminum or unicorn.
Indeed. All right, that's it for this deep dive. Hope you enjoyed this look into the world of dual amp pedals. Until next time.